Hey, it's Paul with LSP Data. We're focusing on niche data to help you close your next off-market deal. And in this video, I want to answer a question that everyone has, is always asked about, right? Which is, what secret list do you pull, or what do you suggest pulling, right? So I get that quite a bit from our customers or general from folks asking online. And I wanted to provide you a list. So stay tuned at the end of the video, which I'll reveal that list. But for now, I want to back it up through data, right? So we're a data-driven company, as you know. And as I always mentioned, we're niche data, and that is what help you find deals, right? So I'll give you a little bit of background. So a lot of you, what you end up doing is you typically go to your local county and you find a foreclosure list, right? Now, all of them are usually going to end up in foreclosure within the next 30 or 60 days, right? And so what we did was we went and did just that manually. And because we've been developing a lot of AI, and we're building in-house AI technology, now we're able to process that information and bring it up to our database to show you some of the trends, right? And that's what I'm going to share in the next 10, 15, 20 minutes here. So bear with me. Again, like I mentioned, a lot of this information obviously comes from your local county, regardless of what product you use out there, right? It all comes from the same place. So, always when I started in my real estate, when I was doing wholesaling, right, I realized that my competitive advantage was going straight to the source, right? And instead of watching all these YouTubers that are trying to sell you their affiliate code for their favorite platforms, right? Because they're just making money off of you. That's all they're doing, right? They don't care if the list that they give you works or it doesn't. Because by the time you get on the phone with a potential seller, they're going to curse you out, right? And they're already tired of, 50, 100 people calling them. And it's understood. But what I wanted to walk you through was, how did we go about this? And also what were our observations, right? So again, went through the same process as you do, right? Went to the foreclosures, took a look at this, extracted that information. Like I mentioned, we've been doing a lot of work with our own OCR LLM models, right? For text extraction from PDFs. And also getting to the point now where we can use some models like DeepSeek reasoning, right? So we're giving DeepSeek a task to say you're a specialist of foreclosure documents. And obviously we want all this information, which we did. And it extracted it really nicely in something that looks like this. I'm not going to show people's information, but here is just a redacted version of that, right? So now we'll be able to see all those notice of foreclosure cells, right? And we start noticing a couple of things. One is obviously you have different kinds of loan types. A majority of them are conventional. You get to see your principal amount, the original deed of trust date, right? And I did a bit of calculation to see if there's any years of difference, right? Because typically, most of you target high equity, right? Which makes sense because that means that the property owner or company has, paid off a significant amount of mortgage, right? So again, I'm going to show you some stats to break this thing down so that way you're not having to read this tiny text. But I wanted to show you the process of how I went about this, right? So again, there were about 230 properties that we sort of went through and crunched the numbers. The other thing that we did was we sort of, just the same way that you would see it in our platform here, right? I basically went ahead and compared it to our existing datas, right? And as you can see, there's different kinds of document types. You got your list pendants, your liens, etc., right? Some of them may or may not have been tax delinquent, right? Other ones may have debt, the individual owed money throughout different periods of time, right? It may not be recent, but it might have been that they went to court 2 years ago, last year, so they have to pay, right? So those are some of the areas that we looked at as well. Also from the civil sort of side, some had tax suits. other civil related problems, right? And sometimes too, the HOAs can also raise foreclosure process if you're not paying your fees, right, and that sort of thing. So anyways, just wanted to give you that context, and again, we're using the properties that were part of the foreclosure list that's coming up in the next in February. And then again, we looked into some of the debt that the individuals owe, right? So in this case, a lot of this were as recent as 4 days ago, right? Last Friday. And again, it's people that have consumer debt. So a lot of those companies, I made a video about this, how a lot of these companies are basically, they buy debt, consumer debt, and basically they end up taking it to court. You need to pay money, right? And unfortunately, a lot of that leads to that foreclosure, which makes a lot of sense, because when people talk about distressed properties, sometimes you're talking more about the current state of that individual's financial situation, right? And the other bit that we did as well was running this through our code violations as well, right? And what we noticed as well is that sometimes there's a lot of gems in here, which they'll say, hey, this home was abandoned, right? So there's a lot of keywords as well, like water leakage and whatnot, right? So things that may lead you to conclude that the property, there's a problem with the property, right? So again, have a code violations as well. You can easily select, vacant properties. You get all that context as well, which is very, very helpful. And again, let's step back a little bit and let's jump into the actual numbers, which is part of why you're watching this video, right? So again, that's a process that we took. Again, I'll continue reminding you that there's about 16 or so document types that may give you early indicators of a pre-foreclosure, right? Now, if we were to put it into sort of summary, right? Well, the true foreclosure ones are list pendants, removal or appointment or a substitute of trustee, right? And all of those are related to the original lender, sort of basically you stop paying your mortgage for whatever reason, and now you're no longer going to be the owner of the property, right? It may go back to the bank or whoever else. The other ones, the secondary ones, are related to sort of that loan distress, right? Modification. So sometimes if people are falling behind, they may renegotiate their loan, right? Their interest, the time, etc. Mortgage as well. And then there's other things like affidavit, right? There's other things like affidavit of heirship, and again, a lot other county related docs that obviously you have access to here, right? And if we keep scrolling down, right? So I guess in summary here, list pendants, remove an appointment or appointment substitute. So those would indicate true positive or things that will lead to a foreclosure, right? As we scroll down, a lot of times many of you want to focus on the years of ownership, especially if you don't know how much equity they have built, right? What I found surprising here is that there's a lot of them within the first 3 years of ownership, right, that end up into foreclosure. So I guess if we're considering sort of that motivation aspect, right, typically 20 years and plus is the sort of, obviously it makes a lot of sense and, probably paid off a lot more. But, even up to 6 years and onwards is a pretty good number, it seems, based on the data that we're seeing. As far as ownership, a lot of them were, this is their primary residence, right? Surprisingly, 21% is, absentee. And I always tell, my customers or other people that I'm doing demos for or talks is that, especially when it comes to our code violation platform, you're going to miss a lot if you're focusing on primary residence and you're just selecting absentee, because sometimes the absentee bid just means that the property owner went and marked themselves as absentee, meaning that they own multiple properties, but sometimes they don't do it. They still own multiple properties, but they may not, market at the city level, right? So again, you may miss out a lot if you just focus on absentee, but obviously that makes sense as well. And just to give you a little bit of that, right? What does that mean? Well, most of them are 1 in 5 properties are absentee owned. And when you do have access to other information like depth and whatnot, that obviously gives you a little bit more indicators, especially if you're doing list stacking. As far as like ownership type, so individuals, this is more for you that whenever you pull list, you're doing skip tracing, right? So majority of them are individuals, and there's in this particular list that we compared, there's only 13% of companies like LLCs, corps, trust, and whatnot. As far as depth, just because some of our data sets we include this information, but not all of it, so I'm just showing you more as a proof of concept here. But a lot of them, again, like I mentioned, consumer depth is what we notice here, basically, right? And a lot of them obviously could be as small as 2,500, 5,000 and onwards, right? And again, it could be that this individual has gone to court multiple times and unfortunately has lost and has had to pay. So there may be already in a financial distress. Things like civil issues, again, tax suits, foreclosures, especially raised by HOAs. Again, I've looked into some HOA documents in the past, and the individuals may have owed $900, which is, depending how you feel about HOAs, they do have a lot of authority, unfortunately, and they do raise quite a bit of foreclosure processes as well. And this is all captured within the civil court bids. When it comes to code violations as well, this is very interesting to me because obviously a lot of the code violations or complaints that take place in properties, they're not necessarily, some of them may be that someone moved in and they're missing, garbage pickup, or it could be that there's a property that has a lot of issues and the neighbors call and raise these complaints to pick up this sort of, especially when people have vacant properties or infill lots, vacant land, people tend to dump a lot of things in there. And obviously no one's taking care of that because the owner may not be in town or they just may not care, right? So anyways, I thought this was kind of interesting just to give you an idea because obviously this information is also in our code violation platform, right? And also we make it a lot easier to filter those out. But yeah, nuisance of property, building code violations, minimum standards, all of those make a lot of sense, right? And the other ones that are kind of interesting to me as well is those water leaks as well. I know many of you look for water shutoff lists, but the interesting bit is the water leaks are interesting because it may be abandoned properties that have water leakage, right? So the neighbor is complaining because sometimes it may be coming from your property and you may be getting billed a lot for that water, right? So anyways, if we were to put this in a sort of our bottom line of observations, right? So a lot of those are obviously direct foreclosures. Some of them carry, at least $2,500 of debt. 22% are long-term owners, right? Meaning 20 years. 21% are absentee owned. This may not be 100% of what we saw earlier, but this is more of a summarization using GPT, right? But all the other ones are one-to-one from our Excel spreadsheet that I uploaded just to have it interpret. But yeah, I guess the main thing here, if I were to give my own takeaway, would be that, yeah, anything above 6 years is a fair game. Obviously, don't just exclude primary residence because a lot of you, again, do absentee owners, and that makes sense. And if you have the ability to apply other factors, like if you have depth information or code violations, things that give you more context about the status of the property, obviously that's going to give you potential better motivation, right, once you get into the phone call. And what, this is sort of what you're looking for, or you're waiting for, which is, what list to pull, right? So again, I made sure that I wasn't considering that, because a lot of times we don't have access to consumer debt and you may not have access to it. So, if you were to pull a list, right, pretty simple here, right? Something like pre-foreclosures. You could do, again, the ownership, it depends on you. Let's do absentee owner. But it could be as simple as applying those two, right? Pre-foreclosures and absentee owned. Obviously, like I said, we make it easy for you to just, filter down the ones that are more relevant. And it's as simple as that, at least for us, for if you're using our platform. But if you're using any other platform, same thing. Again, we make it super simple, like one click, and you get all this information ready to skip trace and ready to market or do mailers, right? Again, absentee owners, maybe long-term individuals. For us, again, what we saw, maybe anything above 6 years would be fine. And again, yeah, it just depends if you want to do individual owners or include companies as well, which again, from our point of view, you also have the ability to filter down to just individuals and exclude anyone else. But yeah, that was sort of the takeaway here. Again, we focus on niche data to help you close deals much faster. And yeah, again, thank you for watching, and stay tuned for the next video. And if you have any questions or comments, or you found this insightful and you want us to create similar content, let us know in the comments. But otherwise, thank you for watching. And then here is where I'll add a bit of the sales pitch. So if you are interested in this data, again, we run a data company. So a lot of this is that county pre-foreclosure documents or code violations. You can always sign up for a 7-day free trial for either the state level or city level or county level. We've now added the ability as well to do Apple Pay and whatnot, but simply enter lspdata.io for a free 7-day trial. If it is not a good fit for you, feel free to cancel. If you have any other questions about our service, feel free to schedule a demo call with us, right? 30 minutes, we can answer your questions or walk you through our platform. But again, thank you for watching.